Hey guys, it's your guy Bill here, and today we are doing a book review for a book I've been looking forward to making a video on for a very long time, and that is Maul Lockdown. Now, I just want to say, this book, I have been imagining what I was going to say for months. I've been playing this months, so I've got all my talking points written down, which is something I haven't done probably since my first book review. But anyways, Maul Lockdown takes place about a year before the events of The Phantom Menace, and it's set within the events of the Darth Plagueis novel. It's actually the second to last book that was published before the Legends timeline was discontinued, but it wasn't the last Legends book we got. There was one posthumous Legends novel, which was the Imperial Handbook. It actually features a lot of stuff from canon, but that's different. We're not getting into that. This came out in January 2014, and it covers and is connected to the Plagueis novel and the Darth Maul 2000 comics. It was written by Joe Schreiber, who also wrote Death Troopers and Red Harvest. And the events of Lockdown connect to Plagueis, with Palpatine having sent Maul on a mission to infiltrate the notorious prison called Cog Hive 7 under an alias. Maul's mission is to acquire a nuclear device. This was all part of an elaborate ploy by Palpatine, to kill Plagueis. Because Maul was going to get this device and hand it over to the Bando Gora. He's going to get it from a very reclusive arms dealer named Aram Radiq. Now, Radiq managed to hide his identity so well, not even Palpatine knew who he really was. And that's saying something, because Palpatine's spy network, his sources were practically unmatched. But after Lockdown, the Bando Gora, the Black Sun, and King Varuna of Naboo used this nuclear device in the bombing of Sojourn, which happens in the Plagueis novel. However, Jabba the Hutt, he knew that Maul was going to get the device because he went to Cog Hive 7, but I'll get to that later. And he learned of the attack through his spy network. So he was able to rescue Plagueis and 114D right as Sojourn was being bombed. And Plagueis knew of Varuna being the one behind the attack, and he went to kill him he kills him in here, while Maul went to destroy the Black Sun organization, which take place over the course of the comics. But Plagueis was completely unaware that Palpatine was the architect behind the entire series of events. And Plagueis and Palpatine decided not to get revenge on the Bando Gora immediately, and it wouldn't be until the events of Star Wars Bounty Hunter several months later, or a while later, when the Bando Gora and its leader Kamari Vosa would meet their end. Now, I've got all my talking points listed down. I'm going to go through them one by one. We see, right before the events of the Maul 2000 comics in the Plagueis novel, it's when he's gifted the scimitar, and Palpatine tells him that he will face many opponents. Darnada's bodyguard, Sinya, Alexi Garen, who was in charge of the Black Sun organization, and Miguela, who was a Night Sister, Garen's personal bodyguard. And the discussion that you see Maul and Palpatine have at the end of the final issue of the 2000 comics, the Plagueis novel picks up where that discussion leaves off. And in Plagueis, Palpatine actually banishes Maul as punishment for revealing the existence of the Sith to Garen, because had Maul died, the Sith would have been known to exist. But Sinya, Darnada's bodyguard, wielded a pair of guard shotos. Now, if those are the weapons used by Maris Brood in The Force Unleashed, but Sinya was the first one to have them, not her. So, yeah, that's something for you. And Darnada, Palpatine told Maul to kill Darnada first, then the Mon Calamari Vigo mourn, and by then Alexi would summon all of the remaining Vigos to his fortress on Raltier. And he told Maul that Magella would recognize him as a Night Brother. And Palpatine was correct in all of this. Because Maul killed them first, and the rest were all gathered, and when Maul approached Magella, she identified him as a Night Brother. But Darnata appears in Plagueis, and because he operated out of deep space demolition removal, and that's where Plagueis goes after slaughtering the crew of the Woebegone, and he orders the ship to be sealed and slagged, and Darnata asks, without salvaging anything? Now, Plagueis was a bit rude in his response, because he said, I said sealed and slagged, do you need to hear it a third time? But then Darnata got a bit too big for his britches and gave attitude to Plagueis. And Plagueis humbled him by threatening to end his father. Like, his father owned the station, and he threatened to to ruin his father's business if Darnata kept up what he was doing. So yeah. Magella, however, was the personal bodyguard and assassin of Garen, and she did identify Maul, like I said earlier, as a Night Brother, and she tried to defend Garen, and they dueled, but Maul ended up slicing her in half at the waist, and her body fell off a cliff. And the image of that is crazy, because he killed her while he was being electrocuted by her force lightning. So yeah, that's pretty insane. I've already explained the ending of the Multi-Thousand Comics, but my initial thought about Lockdown was it was a prison that had fighting events, the gladiatorial matches, and I thought that Maul was going to have to fight through challenge after challenge, each one being harder than the last, until he beat the champion of the prison and then got the device. But that wasn't what happened. And Plagueis is actually in this book, because he knows that Maul is doing something in Cog Hive 7, and he knows it has something to do with the arms dealer, Radique. And so he tries to help Palpatine by making sure that Radique will be killed, but Palpatine gets, of course, very nervous when he finds out just how involved Plagueis is getting. Because, again, this was Palpatine's elaborate plot to kill Plagueis. And whenever he would calm Maul, like via holo projection, he would get increasingly frustrated and agitated with Maul and tell him to have more urgency. Because Plagueis could have discovered Palpatine's plan, but Plagueis was too trusting of Palpatine, and that's what ended up leading to his death. But something you should know, Maul saw Plagueis in this book, because while he was unconscious from a really long fight, he ended up fighting another version of himself in a dream. This was a dream, but after he won, he in the dream he sliced his other self at the waist, and then it ended up with him being on the floor, and his other self was standing above him, and his other self transformed into a Mune, and the name Plagueis appeared in his mind. And Plagueis and Maul never met face to face, but the closest that they ever did was during the events of Palpatine and Maul's conversation in the Phantom Menace. Plagueis and 114D were actually eavesdropping on that conversation out of sight, where 114D was listening and then repeating what was being said back to Plagueis. But I've been wanting to get to this for a while, but in this book, Maul fights a Yuuzhan Vong. Now, if you guys remember my Fatal Alliance video when I said there was something else lurking on the edge of the galaxy, it was the Vong. If you guys don't know what the Vong are, they are an extragalactic species from another galaxy that came to the main galaxy to try and conquer it after they had rendered their previous galaxy uninhabitable. It was thousands of years with just a few scout ships checking the place out and stirring up trouble in certain areas, but it wasn't until years after A New Hope that the full invasion force arrived. And the Republic was completely caught off guard because they had never seen Vong biotechnology before. And the Vong, like, all of their technology was organic. Their ships, their weapons, everything. And the Republic was quickly routed. Coruscant was conquered, and they didn't terraform it. They Vong formed it. That's the official word used. Basically, they destroyed Coruscant's largest moon. They filled some of the chasms with water. It was a mess. And they would capture a lot of slaves and put what is known as a slave seed in them. And a slave seed is a creature that would implant what's called surge coil in you. And over time, it would slowly take away your sentience. So you would eventually just become a mindless slave to the Vong. You wouldn't know who you were or what was going on around you. You would just work away mindlessly, almost like a living zombie, if that makes sense. But while I expected, if you see, like it says here that Maul is going to fight an unspeakable alien horror. Like that's in the way of his goal. I thought this was referring to the Vong, and that the Vong would be the champion of the prison. I was right about that, but the Vong fight didn't happen at a climax. It happened right off the bat. And when I figured out Maul was fighting the Vong right away, I was shocked. Because the Vong was wielding an amphistaff, which is a Vong signature weapon. It's basically a snake that's about a meter long or so. It could be used, like, it had a head and a tail. It was alive. The head could bite. Like, it could bite at opponents and shoot its venom up to about 20 meters. It could blind opponents. And, like, of course, snake venom is very lethal, can kill you, and that's what happened. But it could function as a bow staff, a spear, or a whip. And amphistaffs are resistant to lightsabers. And what they can do is they, like, once, like say the lightsaber was coming, the amphistaff's body would block it, and then it would wrap around the blade of the lightsaber and then attack the wielder's defenseless face. And the only way to kill one was by taking off its head or repeated blunt force trauma to its head. But Maul managed, like, the staff wrapped around his throat and was choking him, but he waited until the right moment before he grabbed its head and twisted it off. And Maul beat this Vong in under 5 minutes because the Vong were very primal, savage warriors, and Maul could easily match that. Because I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my god, like, this is insane. I could not believe that it was happening right off the bat, and the Vong, like, it knocked out one of Maul's teeth and then put it in its own mouth. Of course, Maul took his tooth back after he killed it. But Kamari Vosa appears in this book. She also is mentioned in this book. Plagueis knew her name from Jabba the Hutt. Because Maul, like, there was a very key individual in the prison named, hold on. Artigan Tro. I think that's how you say his name, but basically he was a fighter, but he lost his, like, ability to fight from an injury. He'd been fighting for decades, and he'd been training his young son to fight. He was connected to Radique, and Maul needed to keep him alive. And he would use his son Iogen to keep him alive, and Kamari Vosa, like, but with what Maul's actions, he destabilized the prison to where it was tearing itself apart. And not only because of Maul's actions, but because an attack from Jabba the Hutt. And Vosa and her followers arrived because they were going to meet Maul. And when Vosa was actually Dooku's last former Jedi Padawan. But she's a separate story. But when she found Maul, she attacked him and used Jar-Kai. And when Maul used Juyo, he quickly subdued her, and then she apologized for her actions, that she was wrong. But she finds, like, they all find, what is this unspeakable alien horror. and it's this massive worm called the Sirox. It's completely eyeless. It's massive, and it would, like, any victim it consumed, it would absorb their soul and create a hive mind. And whenever it spoke, each word or few words would be said in a different voice of an inmate that it had eaten. But she and Maul worked together to slay it, and they were carrying the device, the nuclear device, out with Eogan. And I was praying towards the end that he survived, because he seemed like such a nice boy. But they all made it on Jabba's sail barge, and I'm pretty sure that's how Jabba knew of the attack, because he was able to piece together things. But Kamari Vosa, she's known to be very reckless, aggressive, but she's no pushover. She personally cut down 20 Mandalorians by herself, which is no small feat. And her lightsabers were eventually given to Ventress. They were hand-me-downs. So I guess that means Dooku's cheap when it comes to supplying his subordinates. But after Vosa calms down, she finds out that Maul has these 2 explosive bombs in each of his hearts, because due to Maul's Zabrak heritage, he had 2 hearts, and there was an explosive device implanted into each one. And Vosa actually used the Force to defuse them, which she had never done before. And the 3 of them carried the nuclear device out by hand onto Jabba's ship, the Star Jewel. And Vosa actually suggests that she and Maul form an alliance, but Maul doesn't accept. But she suggests that Eogan, Maul take him as an apprentice, and I was thinking, how would he do that? Because Eogan did not show any Force sensitivity. I'm not sure what Vosa's idea was. Probably a Force apprentice, but no, that couldn't happen. I don't know where Eogan went after, but and there's something crucial that I need to discuss, and that is Maul's Maul's life and parentage in both timelines. In Legends, we find that a Night Sister named Kaisina approaches Palpatine at the Blue Desert City and gives Maul to him. Whereas we find out later with the Maul Son of Dathomir comics, which are both canon and Legends, that he was Talzin's biological child. And that Palpatine would meet with Talzin at a house that she lived in with Maul, and whenever that happened, Maul would hide in his room. And eventually, he convinced Talzin to give Maul to caretakers, but then he took Maul. Because he would meet Talzin, and they would trade secrets. And he promised to make her his apprentice, but he dishonored that deal. But here's what I think happened. I think that Kaisina, because Palpatine, in this book, in Plagueis, it says that Palpatine it indicates Palpatine didn't know who Talzin was. But here's what I think happened. I think that in Legends, Palpatine did meet with Talzin, but it was at the Night Sister Fortress, because that's where meetings with Talzin would take place. And it was probably there that they exchanged secrets, and the Night Sister Kaisina saw Palpatine and wanted to give Maul to him. And when she approached him, she lied by saying that he was her son. And when she said half a clan pair, I'm pretty sure that meant he was the youngest of 2 that were born within a certain time period, because Savage was probably the oldest of Talzin's children. And Farrell, his other brother, was also her son, but since Savage killed Farrell, that means Talzin saw her one son kill her other son, and she didn't even bat an eye. But back to Maul. I feel like after she, when the time was right, she took Maul and approached Palpatine and gave Maul to him, and Talzin didn't understand what had happened. And when she found out that Palpatine took Maul, she grew enraged. And she didn't know how he had done it, but when she found out that it was Kaisina, because in Legends, When Talzin learned of Caecina's betrayal, it says that Caecina was locked away and later punished. Although I'm pretty sure by punished it means she was killed. So yeah, that's what I think happened, and these so-called instances of Maul hiding in his room were false memories that Palpatine implanted in his head. And if you think about it, that definitely sounds like something Palpatine would do. And it was initially that Palpatine gave Maul his tattoos as Sith tattoos, but then it was established that those were the Nightbrother tattoos given to him at birth. But Miguela had correctly identified Maul as a Nightbrother, which he is. So here's what I think Palpatine did. And if this sounds exactly like something Palpatine would do. He removed the original Nightbrother tattoos and then applied the Sith tattoos in the exact same spots, in the exact same design, in order to blatantly blast, mock, and shame Maul's heritage. And if you know Palpatine, he did some pretty heinous things. So, yeah, those are all my thoughts on Maul Lockdown. I really liked it, and I'm so glad I finally got to share this with you. I mean, I loved reading this. The Vong fight was incredible. And while I was taken aback, it was so off the bat, like the Seventh Sister said, unexpected but not unwelcome. I highly recommend you read this. You'll understand that it was in line with Plagueis. Read Plagueis first, then read this, and you'll get it. But yeah, I think that's all I have for today. I don't think I'm going to have an additional thoughts video on this. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for staying with me as I review this book. And I will see you guys in the next video, whenever that may be. And I'm not going to review every Star Wars book I read, like I told you guys. I've already read three since I've read this, and I'm not reviewing them. But yeah, thank you guys for being with me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.